AI in Action is brought to you by Alldus International, covering your business's staffing, consulting, and networking needs. Our host brings you the leading minds in AI, sharing their story, their success, and their advice. Focusing on fast-tracking you to the top, AI in Action cuts through the hype to help you kickstart your data science career. To listen to the latest AI in Action podcast, head over to www.alldus.com/podcast or subscribe via iTunes, Stitcher, or Google Podcasts.
Welcome to a special cybersecurity series of the AI in Action podcast. I am your host, John Petherbridge, and today's guest is Clodagh Durkin. She has over 23 years experience in cybersecurity, with 15 of those being spent at senior or leadership levels. Based in Germany for the last number of years, Clodagh has some great insights on the international cybersecurity market with specific emphasis on digital trust. This conversation touches upon local and corporate level precautions taken to maintain this trust. Join us as Clodagh gives us an insight into how she got into cybersecurity.
My weird and wacky background. I started off in college doing very, very geeky things. I was doing physics and maths, and then I moved into engineering because I was a bit bored. It wasn't giving me exactly what I wanted. I took a year off. My college job offered me a full-time role for that year, which was in AirPage. It was the beeper service. Get a life, get a mini call. And It was at the start of prepaid in Vodafone and Aircel. So I ended up staying because that was super interesting and I was getting paid, which was really cool. Not a huge amount in those days, but I was still getting paid, which is a lot better than having my college debts. And I stayed on in Vodafone for many years after that. And primarily from networks. So that was fascinating to see the growth of that prepaid service and 3G and all the music propositions and the huge, after 3G, the huge consumption of mobile as an internet provider as well, and all of the services that we could do on top of that. Fascinating area of security to be in. I'd recommend it to everybody. There's so much happening there. It's at the forefront of technology advances and mobility and this whole thing of we were talking about digital trust, which is a key phrase that I learned from actually one of my colleagues who's in the IDC. It's very much about the perimeter is moving very much, but nowadays people have so many different devices, and you're bringing in IoT, you're bringing in all of these smart devices or voice activated devices. So the perimeter is not just your front door anymore. The perimeter has changed. And very often telco is in the back of that because it's powered by 4 or 5G SIM cards, wireless networks. So telco is a hugely interesting to me.
It's so competitive, such a competitive market that there's always someone pushing the envelope.
Yeah.
And I think that's within the digital trust space, there's always something else that needs to be covered. Like you said there, it used to stop at the door, and now it's into the house, it's in the sitting room, it's in your smart TV, it's in your telephone, it's in lots of different things. Like, so what's the sort of approach that like you can take in the telco industry to ensure like digital trust when it comes to all of these devices that everyone has such easy access to?
So, well, actually, telco for me is because it's so highly regulated, and you only get a license. I mean, there's been when I was traveling, I traveled to a couple of different countries, and part of it was actually following the Arab Spring up from Ghana, up to Italy, where we were working on clean pipe technology. So how we could identify threats from the network itself. So telco and telco is under license to the government in each country that it's in. So you operate the license for the frequency from the government. So in a way, it's so regulated that the digital trust is innate within the telco space. I mean, they don't always get it right, but it's a big network. Stuff can happen. Very often the problem comes in these other companies that don't have as much regulation as the telco space. And I'm seeing it particularly in the F&B market. Healthcare as well has big problems. I mean, there's nobody that's a shining star when it comes to pure exemplary trust. We've seen this with all of these fines coming up,
Yeah.
even with British Airways, which you would assume would be super safe, and you're discovering that behind the scenes they've got the same problems as everybody else, and
Mm.
everybody does. I don't think I've had one conversation that people are going, "Yeah, no, we're perfect. We don't need any help." Everybody needs help. Everybody has problems. So
Yeah.
this is why doing things like this and making it more, a lot of us in the industry are finding it better to talk about it, because we need to start exchanging a lot more thought leadership on the subject.
Yeah.
Uh,
That it definitely makes sense. And like one thing that I always find fascinating is the board. I suppose the board's outlook on security and digital trust. So like we touched on it, like that telecoms is so competitive and everyone is looking to push the envelope, and obviously that a lot of that comes from the board and how innovative they could be with their new incentives and the new innovations that they bring to market. But where do you think, from being like you obviously were a CISO and some large telco companies, where do you see the split between innovation and digital trust, and how much emphasis is put on each?
I see. I mean, like I've been in Germany for a couple of years now,
Okay.
which is very interesting. Everybody presumes that it's very efficient, very secure, very safe, and it's not necessarily, because there's a lot of legacy here. Digital transformation is a big theme. I don't think we realize in Ireland how good we are. Like the Irish banking system is fabulous in comparison to Germany, and nobody believes me on that, but I swear to God, we
Okay.
still sign pieces of paper here, which would never be allowed. Thanks to Mr. Robbie Lynch from Ireland, who did a lot of work with Fraud Forum. It depends. It depends on the country. It depends on the sector. GDPR has brought a lot of attention to security, which is where the board are getting involved, because they're realizing it's not just this small little geeky area that they can avoid talking to, because they hurt their brains talking about too much techie stuff.
Yeah.
But they're paying attention, because now it's impacting where it hurts. It's impacting their bonuses. It's impacting their shareholder value. It's impacting the value of the brand. Security has become a brand value now. So how secure you are, is often where customers will choose you to buy from, whether they'll choose to trust you with their credit card number, whether they'll choose to trust you with their customer number or their bank number, because people are so aware of the challenges that are happening around security these days. So it's for me, it is very much it's a brand trust. So how much do you trust your brand? And security is a big part of that. And it's starting to be marketed as a big thing. Also, since GDPR, what's coming is a lot of procurement departments are asking companies or requiring of companies to demonstrate how they're holding their data secure. Now, they're
Yeah.
going a little bit overboard with this, because often the people asking the questions don't understand what they're asking.
Okay.
I've had a couple of people who've been crying on my shoulder over this one. So they'll ask for the Earth, the Moon, and the stars. So, they'll go to Google and go like, "What should I ask for security?" And they go like, "Oh, you need to have a triple secure data center in the Bavarian forest with a moat around it, with locks and everything that nobody can get into." And in reality, you just need to have everything documented, and you need to make sure that you have transparency, and you're seeing what's going on, and you're checking what's going on, and you're constantly checking, and you're constantly reassessing, and you don't take anything for granted.
Yeah.
So it's become something that companies can market as a good part of procurement, because each company, under GDPR, each company is responsible for their subcontractors or their subcompanies' security. So they're getting more aware of it now, that they need to ask those questions. They don't always know what questions to ask. They don't always understand the answers, but at least if they have a piece of paper, they've asked the question
Yeah.
in the beginning, if that makes sense. So it's a weird and wonderful world out there.
Yeah. It really is. Another thing that kind of fascinates me is, like, everybody is susceptible to breaches. I think that is just the
Yeah.
facts of it. So everybody is susceptible to it. So I wonder what is more important, prevention or reaction, or the prevention of a breach, or how you deal with it after? Do you know what I mean? Like at the steps you take and how smooth your process is once you are breached. Because ultimately, you could put all the precautions in place to prevent the breach, but they can all be overcome by the right hacker. But it always seems like the public reaction to how the company responds after the breach is usually what sticks out the most.
Very good point. I mean, a couple of years ago, there was nobody. When the Yahoo breach happened and the Sony breach happened, which were so big, and it was such a big thing because nobody was admitting it. I mean, breaches were happening all the time. And I think especially nowadays, you can assume that everybody's been breached. They just haven't admitted it or they haven't seen it.
Yeah.
They don't know where they've been breached. I mean, if you look at any company and you start to, you look at the user journey of how they walk into the front door, how they're using their access cards, who can come in through the front door, how they, what's the perimeter of their outside. So what kind of services do they have exposed? It's very easy to find a little chink. And this is how you do it when you're trying to assess the perimeters, or how hackers are doing it when they're trying to assess what your vulnerabilities are. You just gradually step and and you're not looking for the big things. The big things are generally okay.
Yeah.
You're looking for the small sneaky things around the back that people have forgotten that they put in that could give you access to the crown jewels. So you have to assume that everybody has been breached. I mean, you start from that position, then you're probably on a safer bet. And you're very right. It's about the response, and we've seen that in the market, and we've seen that with the insurance companies very often with the ICO in the UK. BA had a problem with this, so they were warned in 2017, I think, that they had a problem. And they were given a chance to go and remediate it. They came back to them and they didn't do enough. They hadn't done enough. So they threw the book at them and they gave them that huge, big fine.
Yeah.
It was 158 million. And that was they had a chance to fix things and they didn't do it. So actually by having proper plans in place and budgeting for your response it can be as important as finding the problems. So the two of them are often hand in hand. So if you have good methods, if you have good SOC that can see what the problems are, you then automatically have a disaster response issue because you have a team in place that can be part of your disaster response.
Yeah.
So it's a really, really good question, and it is a bit of both. And I think it's starting off just going, you can't be arrogant about this. You can't assume you're not, because pretty well, often it could be just somebody who can hide stuff in their bag walking out the front door that could be your biggest hacker. And it could be your ex, I know it was in one previous company where it was an ex-sales guy who took the contact list because he's a bit aggrieved, and that these USB sticks are very, very small nowadays. So if you forgive my old cracked phone, I need to go change this. This is your biggest USB stick at the moment, and you're just going to take the phone off a vendor walking out the front door.
Yeah, it's just everywhere. There's so many points of vulnerability for every business, and then even like just down to the household. So like obviously you're coming from a like leadership positions, and you understand the whole corporate side of it. So let's say for the listeners that are that could be like the mother that has teenage kids, or the father that is in a similar position, or the kids that are in school and they're interested in cybersecurity. And I guess it begins with the digital trust of the phone that they have in their hands, like your cracked iPhone you showed me there. What kind of nuggets of wisdom would you pass on to them, or a bit of advice that they can, I suppose, impact on an immediate kind of short-term basis to kind of ensure that they're at least taking small but positive steps in the right direction to make them digitally secure?
It's about it is about the basics, and it's about the basics whether you're talking about the big breaches or things on the ground. And
Okay.
for kids especially, like you want to make sure, as parents, you want to make sure that you're paying attention. It's very easy to make sure to find, to go into houses and find that the kids are the only one with the unlock code for the skybox.
Yeah.
They're the only ones who remember the code. The same in my house. My dad, my nephew is the only person who remembers the code. My dad he's no idea. He only watches the Late Show and the footy. And it's the simple things like that. It's paying attention. It's making sure that if you have devices, you do need to have antivirus on your phone nowadays. It's still a growing threat, but it is still a threat. So there's a lot of really good like free antivirus. Be very careful when you're choosing it though. So go with the big names, and
Okay.
get the free version of the big names from Symantec or McAfee. Avast and Avira have good free ones. So Malwarebytes as well is another fun one. I wouldn't go with any. This is a free antivirus because they're often the ones that are infected. It's really about making sure that you're addressing the simple stuff first. You can address all the fancy stuff in the end, but get your basics right. Make sure that you're not going on to you something that's looking just doing URL filtering, so it's looking at the sites that you're going on to make sure the sites are not infected with all kinds of crap. Making sure that the kids are not going onto porn sites if you don't want them to. So maybe having an age restriction that only the parents can set. There's
Yeah.
loads of different software out there to help you with this.
Yeah.
And often you don't have to pay an awful lot to get something that's actually that's professional or that's not just free. So it could be just €1 to a month, which is
Yeah.
kind of worth it to protect your kids.
Yeah.
Um,
Absolutely. It's a small price to pay, really.
Yeah, because these has. I mean, kids now they're getting them for their communion, if not earlier, and that's the worse internet than the internet because they're carrying it
Yeah.
around with them all the time. So they're in the playground with their mates, going, "Oh, look what I saw," and the kids are smarter than like anybody else, so they are figuring out how to get into stuff.
Yeah.
Um, and there is no difference from this internet and that internet. They're exactly the same thing. They run over the same backbone. They're accessing the same thing.
Yeah.
So you need to protect any kind of device that's accessing the internet. And you have to presume, as we were talking about before, you have to presume that the internet is bad wherever you're going.
Yeah.
You don't have to be paranoid about it. You just have to take some simple steps to make sure you're as protected as you can be. Um, and it's very easy to get very stressed with security. I mean, I like it a lot because I'm from the west of Ireland. I'm very simple, and that seems to work. And it is about just not getting overwhelmed with stuff. It is about very slowly stepping through what you have and what's the risk, how are you protected. And this works whether it's your house or it's your company. You look at, well, how am I protecting what's my crown jewels? Whether your crown jewels is your bank accounts. A lot of people are using apps to access their bank accounts now, or they're doing a lot of online banking or online purchasing using those mobiles.
Yeah.
Um, it's not something I personally do. It's just I personally don't want anybody to get my phone if I lose it or steal my phone and have access to my accounts. So I keep a dedicated tablet that I do any banking on. But very often you have your email, but you got your train tickets you buy, or you can buy your bus air tickets.
Yeah.
You can hire your car from here. You have your digital wallet from here. So this thing is it's not just the price of the phone. It's also what's on there, and this is
Yeah.
probably the biggest challenge nowadays. How people are they're downloading stuff and they don't want to pay for anything. They want
Yeah.
to have it as easy as possible. They want to use it all the time, anywhere. Um, some people find that password you put in, lock screen is a pain in the ass. So sometimes you'll find that people don't even have a password on it. So it's simple stuff. It's it's realizing what you're carrying around with you.
It's so true. We could just we can overcomplicate this whole thing. I think it comes down to identifying, like you said, the crown jewels and what are you precious about. And a lot of that can be accessed from the phone that we all carry around in our pockets. So yeah, that's just so true. Look, I really appreciate you having the chat. I really like what we covered here, and I'm sure it's going to be super helpful to loads of people. Thanks so much for your time.
Have a good day. Bye.
AI in Action is brought to you by Alldus International, covering your business's staffing, consulting, and networking needs. Alldus offer an exec search program. Alldus can help you discover how data science and AI can transform your company. With our unrivaled network of C-suite executives and senior AI professionals, we offer retained search services across the US and Europe. For more information, contact mark@alldus.com. Get the Alldus advantage. Become a member of the Alldus community and enjoy some of the following: AI meetups. Once a month, our community gathers to listen to some of the leading experts in the world of data science and AI. Our speakers come from all over the world, including Dublin, Boston, and Frankfurt. We also have our AI mentors. Our experts will provide mentoring to Alldus members. And don't forget our AI in Action podcast. Each week we have guests from all over the world talking us through their education, career, and more. Become an Alldus member and get the Alldus advantage. For more information and to sign up for our newsletter, log on to www.alldus.com. That's www.alldus.com. Alldus International, empowering through AI.